you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
All righty. Good morning. It's 9 a.m. in the eastern part of the United States. And we say good morning wherever you are all over the world. Flanked by Mr. Fuller. He is in Washington, D.C., which we will be speaking to in just a few moments. I have Mr. Robert Gatewood checking things out, and my brother Moon Pie making sure that you don't mess with me or Mr. Fuller. Everybody's checked out pretty good. Listen, concerning last week's show, Mr. Fuller and I discussed this, and this is what we're going to implement. That the first 15 minutes of the show, each hour, we're going to devote to the Gmails because I am getting overwhelmed with the Gmails, not just from the United States, but from around the world. So we're going to do that at least, 5 minutes or however long it takes Mr. Fuller to address the questions because we need to get those Gmails read. So that's what we're going to do. So if you call in, you're going to, especially early, as some have already done, there's going to be at least a 15-minute wait, so just be prepared for that. Now, when you do call in, make sure that you, when you call in the 516-453-9921, hit the number 1 or press the number 1 button, and you will go to the top of the line. And if Mr. Fuller is answering the question, you should be next unless there are others that have done exactly what you have done. We're asking, ma'am, we're asking, sir, would you please limit your call to 1 call per show? The reason being that this show is exploding all over the world. A lot of people are listening, wanting to get in, and it's my fault. I've let you go ahead on and speak and ask 2 or 3 questions, but we have to limit that so that more callers can get on. So I'm asking you, ma'am, I'm asking you, sir, to please do that. I will, again, make that announcement later on. Okay, the call-in number that you can call is 516-453-9921. Again, press the number 1 button, and we can go from there. And if you do decide to Gmail me, you can do this at 7 Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, that is numeral 7, B-O-B-B-Y @gmail.com, and I will effort to get your email or Gmails read. I always say that at the beginning of the program, Gmail and email, but I will effort to get them read, and we will get caught up on your Gmails. Trust me on that one. Okay, so without any further ado, let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, let me get to this Gmail here. Let me see here. My brother, not my actual brother, but a brother called in about my brother Darrell. I'm searching. That's why I'm rambling here. But he called in about a problem that he was having. Here it is. Okay, Darrell. He called in or wrote me about what was going on concerning him, and let me get it here as I still struggle to. I want to get his exact wording here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, he said, Dear Mr. Fuller, I have a case in federal court against my past employer for discrimination. My lawyer has suddenly decided he will not proceed with my case. I need the code book so I will know how to proceed. I tried to order on site and it said sold out. Mr. Fuller, how can I find out how I could, how would you handle the situation according to the codification process?
Well, the best thing you can do, in my opinion, what people have asked me, was what can they do as an individual without a lawyer? Because I always say I don't know how to deal with a lawyer in such cases. When I was on a job, and a lot of people, just about everybody that I talked to, lawyers just kept taking money, and with no results. Now that's just the truth of that matter. So I went the route of just simply here in the Northwestern Hemisphere going to constitutional law, because that's supposed to be available to everybody. That is the law of the land, they say, what they call the United States Constitution in the Northwestern Hemisphere. And what is called the United States, there is a law, a series of laws, composite, in other words, a grouping, called the Constitution, that covers everybody as an individual. So I took the position that whatever the lawyers were doing, they would have to use the Constitution, since that's the law of the land. And if there were just two people on the entire planet, and there were two people who were in what they call the United States, and one had a problem with the other, and they had these laws in place, then that one person, whomever that person might be, would just say, well, this is the law of where we are. It's just two of us. Just two of us. That's all. Nobody else. So, and the two of us are going to be governed by this one set of laws. Just one set of laws, and it just so happens to be two people rather than a multitude of millions. No difference. It will still apply. So the Constitution of what they call the United States says you have some amendments there that are addressed directly to individual persons. That's what I have heard. And they are the amendments to the Constitution, starting with freedom of speech and et cetera, et cetera. And then the second one is the right to bear arms, et cetera. And then you have the 5th and the 14th. Now, the 5th and the 14th is what I used when I became frustrated on a job that I had. And I said, well, I'm going directly to the 5th and the 14th Amendment. Now, what is the 5th Amendment? It's called due process. There's also the word compensation in there, and that really caught my eye because I use that word a lot. That's in the title of my book. So I said, now due process and then equal protection of the laws, that's also in that 5th Amendment. Amendments mean they made a constitution, but they said we're going to add a few things. Amendments mean additions to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're going to add a few things that are going to cover people. And so I went that route. And the 14th, the 5th and the 14th, equal protection. So equal protection means whatever they did with you, did they do everybody that way under the same circumstances?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make any difference how far back you go. You go back, 200 years. Did they do everybody that way under the same circumstances?
Correct.
Right,
okay.
And that's what you go by. And then the 5th Amendment, did they go by doing it the correct way? And so you ask for someone to put it in writing that the 5th and the 14th Amendment were not violated. You go with that. I can't go into further details on that, but that's what you do. And you can do that yourself in just one or two paragraphs. Just ask for an investigation. That's what you go with.
That's what you go by. Okay.
Yes,
Let's
you ask for an investigation into whether the Fifth and the 14th Amendments in your particular case were violated.
Okay.
And that means that you got the law enforcement people all the way up, FBI, whomever it takes, CIA, whomever, come and investigate your case because the Constitution may have been violated. Always mention the 5th and 14th.
Okay, now let's move to the second Gmail. We've got two more we have to do. This comes from Daryl Weston, and he said this, my question for you, Mr. Fuller, is this. What does the code say about victims of white supremacy engaging in symbolic victories? For example, a show a few weeks ago with the release of the video showing a young man down in Georgia being stalked and killed by two white supremacist people became even more outraged nationwide. And so on what we've been his 26th birthday, what would have been his 26th birthday on Friday, people across the country engaged in jogs and marches for the same amount of miles he was said to have walked as he was being hunted. When Trayvon Martin was killed coming from a store down in Florida, he had a bottle of iced tea and a bag of Skittles candy, and so people nationwide bought the same two items while marching. So my question again, Mr. Fuller, is how does symbolic gestures help us fight white supremacy?
Symbolic gestures help fight white supremacy if they are effective in fighting white supremacy. That's the answer. You always go by what the results were. Did you get the results that you set out to get? Like I've written a basic book, Compensatory Counter-Racist Code, that you can get by going to producejustice.com. And my goal was to solve the race problem. Why not? Now, have I fulfilled that? No. That's why we're having these programs continuously. So people are marching and whatnot and writing books and having seminars about solving the race problem. So you always measure what you call progress by did you get it done? So I measure my progress, not by the 50-yard line or the 10-yard line, anything like that. Did I reach the goal? That's the only thing that counts. Did I reach the goal with what I started out to do? Yes or no? And if I didn't reach the goal of what I started out to do, which I have not so far, then I was not successful in what I started out to do. But the whole idea is just to do your best. But you always keep in mind, no one can measure somebody else's progress in doing anything unless they are dependent on that person to do it, and that person has promised them that they'd get it done. But if the person is just saying, I'm going to try to do what needs to be done to settle whatever this matter is, I'm going to try to solve this problem. So the person who is trying to solve the problem is the person to judge whether or not the problem was solved. Mm-hmm. So that's the way that goes. That's right in line with VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Everybody's qualified to do that. Okay. Whatever your goals are, did you accomplish it? Yes or no? Sir. You either did or you didn't.
Okay. And for those of you who have just tuned in, and forgive me, I had a lot to do this morning. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. We call it also the CRCS. We have a new format, if you will, this morning, and what we're going to do is for the first 15 minutes, which we went over a little bit today, we're going to answer some Gmails. I have about 6 minutes to do for Mr. Fuller to answer at least 3 Gmails so that we can get that down the first 15 minutes of each hour. So that's what you are hearing right now, and then we will take your calls. The last question on this first 15 minutes, Mr. Fuller, which will be extended a little bit, is this. This comes from iTest. Says this. I remember Mr. Fuller saying that when a racist police officer or a soldier stops a black person, we should comply with their demands without fussing, fleeing, or fighting. Mr. Fuller said, quote, we should cement this in our heads, end of quote. Could Mr. Fuller elaborate on why this is so important not to fuss, fight, or flee, and why, Mr. Fuller, why do black people react more to white on black killings rather than tons of black on black killings? Thank you.
Well, in answer to the first question, if you don't fuss, you don't fight, and you don't flee, most likely that will work for you and not against you. Because the record shows if you fuss, you fight, you flee from someone who has told you that they have law enforcement authority and that they are taking you into custody or words to that effect, it means if you fuss, you fight, you flee, you're most likely not going to be successful with your fussing, your fighting, and your fleeing. The record shows it usually does not work. So why attempt to do something that the record shows usually does not work? Why roll those dice when you can have another avenue? You have a compensatory option, and that is not to fuss, not to fight, not to flee, and say, we'll settle this matter in another venue, in another setting, because right now is not the time to get into some fussing, fighting, and fleeing, and a whole lot of drama, which black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere particularly have a tendency to do, because they think that drama makes everything automatically work very well for them. Whereas just whatever drama is just doing something, just doing whatever. The louder the better. Draw a whole bunch of attention and whatnot, create a whole bunch of fuss, and they think that everything, if you do that, just create a fuss, everything will fall in place. That's usually the way that black people usually handle everything. Get louder. That's one of the first order of business. Throw in a whole bunch of name calling. That's the second order of business. Make sure you get plenty of name calling in there. And start talking about what your rights are and all that. Okay, start yanking on the handcuffs and whatnot. Someone asked me, how many MFs will it take to get some handcuffs off of you once they have been put on? Usually it doesn't work. I don't care how many you come up with or what style you use to say them in. Usually, someone who has put you in handcuffs is not going to take you out of the handcuffs based on how well you can curse. Man, I know some curse words. I'm going to shake you up with these curse words, and you're going to take these handcuffs off of me. When I get through, I got about 9 curse words that if I say these curse words, that's a guarantee. I'm going to walk away from these handcuffs, and you're going to be standing here looking silly because you ain't going to be able to stand what I'm going to say. Well, good luck with that. Most officers have heard every type of curse word anybody can use, and you're not going to curse your way out of a pair of handcuffs. The record usually shows. Mm-hmm. All right? So just don't do it. Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. Why? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't work. That's why. Now, what was that other question?
The other question is, why do blacks seem to be more outraged with black-on-black crime or against black as opposed to white-on-white?
Out of a habit of doing so, it makes no sense at all.
Killings.
According to the code, a death is a death. A death is a death. Now, it is true that under white supremacy, black people are encouraged to kill each other. Now, how do black people stop killing each other? That's the question. One thing is the code says minimize contact and you minimize conflict. I was thinking this morning and reading this morning's papers about the number of killings that happened in a place called Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
And it just keeps escalating. It just keeps going on, even in the middle of a virus.
Okay.
And most of the people who kill each other, a lot of them, they say, in this morning's paper, they say the people knew each other. They had contact with each other. Black people need to stay away, not on account of the virus. Black people need to put distance between themselves and other black people. Now, we know that, and we should do more of it, because the more we huddle together, the more we harm each other.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Let me get his exact question. So, Mr. Fuller, why do black people react more to white on black killings rather than the tons of black on black killings? Okay. Now, what you just described there, would that be considered a toxic relationship, if it is a relationship at all?
Oh, black people don't even have relationships. That raggedy stuff that we call relationships, I mean, it doesn't get honorable mention. Compared to what? Compared to what a relationship should be. Our very best relationships in this prison system called the system of white supremacy are toxic.
Okay.
They are absolutely toxic. They're not healthy at all. Black people don't have healthy relationships at all, period. I'm talking about even the best ones. Compared to what? Compared to the quality relationships that all relationships should be. That's a thing of the future. We should work on it.
Okay. All righty. Now, that was the first 15 minutes, but we went, we actually did go 15 minutes because I spent the first 6 minutes speaking about our new format but addressing the Gmail questions, which we will do every hour that we're on. The first 15 minutes will be devoted to Gmails. Now, the phone lines are open, so if you were on and you want to call back, you can, 516-453-9921, and make sure you press the number 1 button, and right now you will go to the top of the line because I am looking at the screen thanks to Robert and Leon Gatewood who make me look good anyway or sound good. They're right there, so you will go right now. Mr. Fuller will address your questions right now, and we ask that you please try and limit your question to just one so that we can get as many people in as we can. So if you, please ma'am, please sir, if you will be kind enough to do that. Again, phone lines are now open, and you can dial right in and you will be heard. 516-453-9921. I see somebody I know but no name, but they didn't say if they're just listening or not. But okay, let me see here. Let me do this and see. Are you just listening or are you just holding? Okay, they're just listening. Okay. All righty, my bad. Okay, got that out of there. Okay, Mr. Fuller, if nobody is there, let's do this here. Go to the Gmail, and let's do this one here. And it's kind of long, so I'll do this. I'll try to shorten it. And that's another thing. When you do write, I ask, ma'am, sir, please do not write me a novel. Try to make the question as short as you can so that I can read it for radio edit. That way, we can move on. So I would appreciate if you would do that. Dear Mr. Fuller, I hope you're safe and well. Let's say two white supremacists talk about killing the virus with a black person. The black or non-white person thinks about killing COVID-19, the virus, while the white supremacist killing him and other non-white or black people by using the virus. The white supremacists get away with this as it's supposed to be controversial, according to the white supremacists, that viruses are alive. But viruses are not alive, as viruses does not carry all the biological hallmarks of life. In other words, a thing that is not alive cannot be killed. In 2016, the University College London, a secret summit on intelligence was attended by overt white supremacists and eugenists, where they planned on killing off swaths of prisoners of war with the next virus that comes along. For them, just like for Hitler, the real virus is black people. So then, is it likely that when white supremacists talk about killing the virus, they are talking about killing black people, since a virus like in SARS or COVID-19 cannot be killed because it's not alive?
I don't know. But what the person who submitted that information just submitted can be considered by all of the listeners that comes under VGQ, because I don't have an answer to that. I don't know enough about that virus at all, except that what I hear and read about, and that is it's a deadly virus. But outside of that, I don't venture. I haven't ventured enough to look into it. But for those who have looked into it, you can come to your own conclusions and make that information available, just like the people who say that they know the most about the virus can present whatever information they have. And some people say it's genetically engineered and whatnot, and that is something that they are actually coming up with, they, whomever they are. Some people suspect the white supremacists to kill off a certain number of black people worldwide. That could be, and then it could be that that's not true at all. But my answer is, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, because I don't know enough about the virus, not even the beginning of knowing enough. I just know what I hear. That's the way it is with prisoners of war like myself at my level. You just go by what you hear in the prison rumors. You're in the prison. If disease starts spreading among the prisoners and you don't know anything about it, you just go by whatever you hear. And you may not be hearing anything that's true, and then everything that you hear may be true. How do you know? Until it all plays out.
All righty. I'm going to do this. Beyond, I'm going to take you after our break, which is going to be in about 3 minutes, so hang on in there. In the meantime, Mr. Fuller, this question here from Zachary, he says, hello, fellow victims of racism. Mr. Fuller, are you familiar with North Sentinel Island?
With what?
North Sentinel Island.
No.
Okay. If not, it is a small island off the coast of India with an unknown population of indigenous people who still live primitive lives. They completely reject all outside contact, even to the point of violence. Several missionaries and news crews have been attacked for coming too close to the coast of the island. I would say that it is the only place on the planet where the people are not dominated by white supremacy, because they don't allow the white supremacists or anyone else, for that matter, to invade their island. Mr. Fuller, would you say that the locals have enacted a code that works against white supremacy? Thank you for taking my question.
No. I say that when you say white supremacy, you mean capabilities also. If you are in a supreme position, the only question is, if the white supremacists want to dominate those people where they are, can they? And the answer is, according to all the evidence that's ever been shown to me, that would be a piece of cake. They just walk in and take it, that's all. They don't want to do it. I mean, the people couldn't do that. They're not running them off. What do those people have? Do they know anything about napalm? They know anything about Agent Orange? They don't know anything about the coronavirus, even though the white supremacists may claim that they don't know anything about it. But they know about other things, other diseases,
Okay.
and they know what were cured. And they can just simply, the people wherever they are, if they are people of color, They have food supplies and all like that. They have fish that they eat or something.
All right.
The white supremacists will just go in and spoil all of that. Next thing you know, they're starving and begging.
All righty, break time.
10 minutes.
This is, and you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., also called the CRCS, here on ProduceJustice.com. If you'd like to make a phone call, you can, 516-453-9921, and make sure you press the number 1 button. You will go to the top of the line. Or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and just submit your question, and it'll go right in rotation. The Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and Mr. Bobby. Okay, 9:30 on the East Coast of the concept called the United States, and we are taking your calls. Phone lines are now open. Let's go to Beyond. Beyond, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please? Oh, wait a minute. Hello? There you go. Beyond, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, Mr. Fuller. Yesterday we had a situation in Minneapolis where 2 police officers were detaining a non-white individual, a black male, and the white police officer or race soldier had his neck on the non-white individual's, his feet, his knee on the non-white individual's neck, and this gentleman is saying, I can't breathe, and there was a lot of people around videotaping this incident. This man kept saying, I can't breathe, I'm gonna die. People out there talking to this officer, this so-called race soldier. Please let the man breathe. This man kept his. How long are we going to expect these kind of action to keep going on, Mr. Ford?
That's the question?
Yes, sir.
How long? As long as we have the system of white supremacy, that is going to continue to happen. That's not going to stop, period, unless the white supremacists decide we're just not going to do it anymore. Why? Because you have a prison system called the system of white supremacy that is worldwide, that calls for that type of thing. It's a prison system. In a prison system, you put your knee on a prisoner's neck. And regardless of what the other prisoners standing around, milling around in their prison uniforms, which is their black skin, their non-white skin, talking about how they don't like it, well, I don't have to care about what you don't like, do I? Where's your army? Where is anybody among you who has the muscle to make me do anything? I'm doing my job. If I'm a white supremacist, what do you think white supremacists do? We put our foot on black people's necks, and nobody can stop us from doing it because nobody has. And anybody who thinks they can stop us, who has tried, has failed so far. So, I don't have to pay any attention to you, and I'm going to keep doing it. You see, I got my foot on his neck. He's saying he can't breathe. He ain't supposed to breathe. He's a prisoner of war. That's the way they see it.
And Mr. Porter, all of the newspaper I have read about the situation that happened, all of the newspaper consistently said that a man died while being detained. What kind of statement is that? The man obviously got murdered.
Wait a minute. Your question is what?
All of the newspaper, collectively, they all have this story that a man died while being detained.
Yes.
The man did not die while being detained. He was murdered.
Yes. if you're a prisoner of war, particularly an illegitimate prisoner of war, which is what the system of white supremacy is, it's a prison system that is illegitimate. If you're talking about humanity, if you're talking about a correct prison system, it's a prison system designed to do great harm to people of color. That's what the system of white supremacy is, a world prison. They have made prisoners out of the non-white people of the entire planet called Earth. And the name of that prison system is the system of white supremacy. And the inmates of that prison are non-white people. And their uniform is the color of their skin. So if you're in a death camp, you expect death. See, black people keep thinking that we're in some type of paradise. We are in a prison system. Expect to be treated like a prisoner. The only way you can get out of this is to eliminate the entire prison system. I'm saying the entire system, not put some individual guard of the system on trial and go, 2 or 3 months, arguing back and forth and whatnot, while they even having a so-called trial. There are hundreds of those cases still going on right outside the courthouse window. You'll see 5 or 6 people from the courthouse window with their foot on some black person's neck, while you're still having this one trial, trying to get one person, having retrials and all like that, and having this and that and the other, and people arguing points and whatnot. All you have to do is just walk out on the courthouse steps, and 2 blocks away, you'll see 15 other cases going on that are on their way into the court to do the same thing. The white supremacists say these people are dumber than dumb. They don't even know what they are dealing with.
Okay. All right, Beyond. We gotta go because we're pressed for time. Thank you for your call. Don't be a stranger. Okay. Let's go to Justin. Let me see here, Justin, so I can get you up here. Okay, Justin, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Hello, Mr. Fuller. Hello, Mr. Bobby.
Hello, sir.
I got a question. How does one, when one is the only non-white individual on his job situation, how does one go about navigating the situation with a racist white man and racist white woman when you're the only, when I say only non-white on your job situation, and they... Whether
it's 2 million or just one, you need a code. That's the answer. That's why I'm trying to write one. I'm trying to get everybody to think in terms of we need a code. Now, what is a code? Where everything that comes up, you already know what you're going to do before it happens. Not wait until it happens, start that head scratching, foot shuffling thing that we usually are real good at. We're supposed to know what we're going to do and what we're going to say before it happens, by knowing what? First of all, what we are dealing with, and think about it all the time. See, what do black people think about more than anything else? I keep revisiting that. Showing off to other black people. Whereas as prisoners of war, we're supposed to be at midnight in our house sleep, thinking about ways and means of replacing the entire system of racism with the system of justice. That's what we should have as our reason for breathing. We shouldn't have no other reason for breathing other than that. Everything else is just a side issue. Yes, you can enjoy things and all like that, but always while you are a soldier on duty 24 hours a day. It's not a day that you are not devoted to that idea. Not a minute that you're not devoted to that idea, that concept. Replace the system of racism with the system of justice. That should be your reason for breathing. not planning the next party. That's all black people are thinking about. Well, as soon as I get a little break, it's party time. Where's my woman? Where's my drugs? Where's my this? Where's my that? Where's my new car? As long as we think like that, we're going to get the same results we get. And we should stop griping about it if we're not going to get on our job. That's our job. That's our reason for being born. We shouldn't look at it no other way. Why? Because we're in a full-scale war. That's why. Now, it's not about mistreating anybody, but that's the answer. We have to have a code, meaning everything that you do has to be planned well in advance. And not only that, just your conversations. Black conversation is just as ragged as anything can get. All of your words should be precise. You shouldn't even talk to people unless you have something constructive to say. That should be a part of the black code worldwide. We don't talk nonsense, ever. Everything that we say is supposed to produce a constructive result. We don't have anything like that. We are nowhere near that.
All righty, Justin, there you go. Thank you for your call, and don't be a stranger. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Fuller, let me go ahead and do this. We're going to speak just a little bit about your book. A question has just come up, and the question is, according to your knowledge, is the code book out right now? You're sold out? Because I just got a question, and that was asked, is the code book shut out? Apparently, Daryl and a few others have attempted to get the book by going to producejustice.com, and the book is sold out. Do you have any updated information concerning your book as we speak about, or have you speak about your book?
Well, no, I haven't received any lately, except that it's supposed to be. This is toward the end of May in 2020, and they said before the ending of May, I should be receiving them. That's what that they should be available. I don't receive them directly, but they should be available back at that website, producejustice.com. Now, that's the 2016 edition.
Yeah.
Now, the Word Guide and the 1984 edition, which is the original edition, they're still up there. But definitely that 2016 edition should be there. That's the revised, expanded edition of the 1984 edition that is not available right now, but it's getting toward the end of May. It should be up there.
Is the Word Guide available?
Yes, the Word Guide is available.
On that?
Yes, the Word Guide and the 1984 edition is available. Okay. Right.
Okay.
But not the
Is there any
2016.
reason why the 2016 edition is sold out? I mean, it just
I've been told that there was a glitch in the ordering of and in the transportation. A lot of it associated with the virus, I think.
Okay. Now, a lot of people are new to the program, and they're hearing about this. And you've said it many times, but for those who are new to the program, what is this book, the name of it, and why is it so important? Why do you suggest that people get this Go book or even have a code?
Because I say it's the missing link. Black people usually, we've been taught using what we might call the religious format for most religions. People gather at a particular place at a particular time, and we have rituals that we go through. We introduce people, who are very prominent in carrying on the work, you might say, and the things that need to be done. And sometimes, that takes up a lot of time. You go to different cities in different years, and people assemble here and they assemble there. And we sort of follow the religious pattern, the way that most religions operate. People assemble, and they they talk about their problems and whatnot, or they do their worshiping in religious sense. And so we use the religious format in all other formats when we're allowed to. That's the non-white people of the planet. But the religious format, the way it usually calls for groupings of people. Now, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept is, and this virus has kind of proven it, each individual person should have a direct line to solving problems. That's all it is. That you don't have to necessarily assemble anywhere, go to a particular geographical spot and say this is a spot that we have to be in order to get anything done. If we don't get to this spot, if anything prevents us from getting to this spot, if we can't assemble in that spot, we're completely helpless because this spot has been set aside. And to say, I'm using the word spot, but you might say temple. When it comes to most religions, they'll say we have a holy site that everybody must go to, because if you're not at that holy site, or if you haven't been blessed by being at that holy site, then you are not somehow a whole person. There's no way that you can, function away from that. You have to be there, and not only just be there at that particular geographical spot, you got to be there with a certain number of people. Because if you're just there alone, then that's no good. That won't work. That means you're helpless. The code says you are a walking temple. You are a walking church. You are a walking organization. That's who you are. Just one person. One person and logic. The logic that the creator of this entire universe produced. The one person with a code. That's all you need. You don't have to go and assemble anywhere with anybody. You have a code that tells you what to do and what not to do everywhere you are. Here is the theory behind the book that I have written. I believe it's correct. If you solve the problems of each individual person, you have automatically solved the problems of all people. That's a very simple formula, but it runs right past most people. Black people have been trained. Well, I don't see no other black people around here. Oh, woe is me. Oh, woe is me. I'm helpless. Like all those other black people can do anything for you anyway. They'll scatter like chickens when a machine gun goes off. So you got to know what to do when a machine gun starts firing as an individual person. Every soldier knows that. You can be in a crowd of 1 million soldiers, but the bullet hits you. Just one shot. The war is over for you if you're hit in the head. So you have to know how to cover your head. You're an individual person, regardless of what the other people are doing. It's your head that needs covering because you're the only one that got shot out of the 1 million that were there. Duh. We can't think like that. We have a herd psychology, but it's the white supremacists' fault. Because they herded us in the ships, they herded us here, they herded us there. So if black people look up and don't see a whole bunch of other black people, shoulder to shoulder, nothing but a big target, really, in this day and time, we think we don't have power. A power of one is all you need. That's you as an individual. Use it.
Were you, I don't know if you were aware of this, but what you just said, there is biblical evidence to back up support, and that's my word, evidence, back up support to what you just said, found in the biblical Bible book of 1 Corinthians 6:19, when it says that, know you not that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit and that the Spirit of God dwells with you. I think people have got it twisted, thinking that the church is the building. No, you are the church, just like you just said. I don't know if you were aware of that, but that's what that is. That's prophetic. That was already in there. Okay, let's do this. I just got a word from the administrator, and the administrator has said, Mr. Fuller, that the new books will be shipped this week. This is 526, May 526. So evidently, they said the books will be shipped. So
I'm
it was
pleased
out.
to hear that.
Yes, just got that notice in here. Okay, this is. By the way, call in at 516-453-9921. The phone. I do have a line or two open. Make sure you press the number 1 button and you will go to the top of the line. This is from Gigi. She says this, pertaining to the 4 wants on page 171 of the code book, does the answer to question 4 necessarily have to match the answer given to question 2? In other words, is the anticipated constructive result that follow an action necessarily also the reason for wanting to do a certain action?
Well, if I understand the question, all of those 4 questions are interactive, one to the other.
What do you mean?
Everything in the entire book is interactive, one to the other. Because we are in what? A universe. That's the whole United Independent Compensatory concept. And everything that's in the universe affects everything else, either in a large degree or small degree, or depending on what the conditions are. Every grain of sand that's at the bottom of the ocean has something to do with not only the ocean and not only the other grains of sand, but the entire universe. Because the elements of the entire universe is in that one grain of sand, like it is in the body of a person. One person, in my opinion, has a relationship to everything in all of the trillions of stars that are out there. Just one person. We have elements of all those stars right in your one body. I think everything is connected. Nothing is disconnected. Everything is, unified. Some people call it the unification theory. Well, everything affects everything else. Clouds affect the water that's in the ocean. The sun affects the moon and how it moves about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And people affect each other, the way they move about.
All righty. Let's go to, Dante. Let me see if I can get you in here. Wait a minute. Muted right up. Okay, Dante, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Just wanted again to point out that I have I started a Reddit subreddit on r/Produce Justice for anyone listening that also wants to join in some offline discussion. And I just want to thank you guys for having the space for us. I have a couple questions, but I'm going to save some for later.
But you can only ask one, Dante. You can only ask one now.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So my first question is for you, Mr. Fuller, and it's on page 420. I read the whole book in the last week just to have it fresh in my mind and cover to cover. And on page 420, you quote, "As long as a non-white person is subject to the system of white supremacist racism, there's no way for him or her to avoid expressions of so-called self-hatred." I feel like I'm pretty familiar with how that shows up for me in myself and in my own life, but I wanted to hear from you, Mr. Fuller. I'm curious how expressions of self-hatred come up for you these days and have come up in the past.
What the theory of self-hatred?
No. You said that there's no way for, as long as a non-white person is subject to white supremacy, the system of white supremacy, that there is no way for him or her to avoid expressions of self-hatred. So I was asking for you, as a non-white person, I'm curious, what sort of expressions of self-hatred come up for you, both now and at other times?
Oh, because you despise yourself on account of your weakness, which is natural, and which you should. Black people shouldn't go around glorifying themselves in the condition that we're in. That's why I say black people are not eligible, logically speaking, to celebrate anything. We're prisoners of war. What are prisoners of war celebrating for? We should be thinking about not being prisoners of war. Celebrate that later on. When you're not a prisoner of war, you're no longer subject to abuse on account of what the Creator made you, a person with color in your skin. Why should you have to suffer because of that? Somebody who, with their arrogance, said you are the wrong color, and therefore they have the duty to abuse you for their convenience, because that's all racism is, and it's not logical. So therefore, if you are subject to this type of abuse based on something that you had absolutely nothing to do with, and something that is really harmless, the color of your skin, it doesn't bother anybody unless that person just decides, well, your skin color bothers me. It really upsets me. I can't stand it. So therefore, since I can't stand it, I'm going to abuse you on account of you have color in your skin. Nothing logical about that. That shouldn't be tolerated, not for 2 seconds. Not for 2 seconds. Anybody who even thinks like that, okay, is dangerously sick. And if they're going to do you harm on account of it, boy, you all really need a problem. I mean, you've got a problem here that needs solving. So that's self-hatred. You know, that's what black people have been trained to do, you know. That's, you know, you start, like J. Rogers said, people have a tendency to worship their captors. They want to be like their captors. And if their captors are a bunch of gangsters, then you want to be a gangster too. And that's the way black people are. That's why we abuse each other. You know, we see, well, white people abuse us. The white supremacists abuse us. So maybe that's what we should be, is abused. So I abuse myself with drugs and whiskey and all like that. But since I wake up from it and I'm still here, I'm going to abuse everybody that looks like me. So I'm just going to run up and down the street and try to see anybody that looks like me, and I'm going to find out a way to abuse them. Because of what? Because that's all I know. I don't know anything else outside of that. That's how I'm going to spend the rest of my life, be it ever so short, because I'll probably be dead before I'm 19 anyway. And probably I need to be dead, because I ain't worth nothing, and ain't nothing that looks like me worth anything, and so that's what I'm here for. Come here, spend 19 years abusing other black people and abusing myself until somebody abuses me that I'm no longer here.
All righty. Okay, Dante, thank you for the call. And as I usually say to everybody, don't be a stranger. Okay, we have come to the conclusion of the first hour. Let me thank you for your calls. Thank you for indulging me a little bit about our new directions, which I will say again at the beginning of the second hour. You have been listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show, CRCS, right here, ProduceJustice.com. Alrighty. Welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, here on ProduceJustice.com. Now, which you can also get the books and other materials that you need. I understand that according to the administrator who recently sent a note about 15 minutes ago that the Counter Racist Code book, the 2016 edition, will be available this week. Let's see. New books will be shipped this week. Okay, so that's good. So you can go ahead and print or ask or submit for your order, and it will be fulfilled. We got some new rules here. Please, ma'am, please, sir. We ask you to adhere to these. Beginning today, every hour, we're going to devote 15 minutes to the Gmails that have been stacking up. And in the first hour, we were able to get through a few more than what I thought. But we're going to do that giving respect to those who take the time to Gmail. Mr. Fuller and I usually do not talk during the week, but last week I called him and went over a few things with him, and this is what we decided or agreed upon, that we would allow 15 minutes for the Gmails to be read at the top of the hour, and then we'll go on. You see, we allow for mistakes to be made. If somebody wants to be perfect, then this show isn't going to be for you. It's not rehearsed. It's live. What mistakes and all. I make mistakes. Mr. Fuller will admit that he makes mistakes. That's just the way it is. Quiet as it's kept, you make mistakes too. But we're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to get the word out. And life is like that. So we beg your indulgence with us that you would adhere to the suggestions. 15 minutes that we're going to devote to the Gmails, and then after that you may call. Or if you want to call and hang on, you can. Some people are calling and just listening, as this person is in the 202 area. I guess the 815 area code is listening also. That's good. That's good. And I don't know who this person is. By the way, when you call in, when the administrator asks you your name, please give your name to them so that I can see on the screen that I have that we can do that. Now, another thing, when you call in, if you've called in once, what we're going to try to do is get everybody, give somebody else a chance. We're asking, ma'am, we're asking, sir. Give somebody else a chance that they may call in. And if I have time near the end of the program, whatever, then we will get you in. We want to try to get as many people in as possible. Okay, without further ado, let me see if I can get that Gmail back because I just lost. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do our Gmails here for the next 15 or so minutes. Okay, this comes... I'm having difficulty with that name, but anyway, I'll do this. It says, hello, Mr. Fuller. I believe I've been shortchanged by you. I've watched Hustler and Casablanca on your suggestion. 4 weeks ago, I requested that you disclose the 3 lessons that you've learned from Hustler and Casablanca, respectively, and for some vague reason, you were unable to do so. Let's see. The lessons I learned from Hustler are, number 1, poor/selfish decisions can negatively affect those close to you. And number 2, an individual should know their limits. I learned from Casablanca that sacrifice/selfishness is necessary at times. Could Mr. Fuller at least provide 1 lesson for each movie?
No. And I don't intend to do that. I intend to have the list of movies up at some time. I suppose I've had it up about 5 years ago, but I'm so busy now. I'm still working on getting that done when I can coordinate to get it done. And I'm going to make a list also, hopefully at the same time, of things to look for, generally speaking, in all 40 or so of these movies, just generally speaking. And I'm saying when you look at any movie, including ones that'll never be on the list, on my list. But when you turn on your television and look at through the different companies that you have, look at any movie or read any book. At the end of reading that book, even novels, or the end of a movie, you should ask yourself, what were the lessons in the movie? And go back and see the movie again if you're really curious, and you discover where the lessons are. Because there are lessons in every movie, the ones that I've picked, but the lessons are all over the place, including all the lessons that I didn't see. Because we're mostly, and I'm talking about fiction now, because most movies are fiction, even when they're supposed to be based on fact. They're fiction. Because most things I found out, to my own satisfaction, when people write autobiographies, in other words, a person talking about his or her own experiences, their existence on this planet, they don't come anywhere near to telling the truth. That's the conclusion I came to. Why? Because there's no way for them to even know it. The truth about themselves, not to say anything about other things. So biographies, autobiographies, you always say, what about the dozens of things that are not in the book that really are part of that person's existence? If you set out to write an autobiography yourself, talking about your entire existence, you are not going to be telling the truth, because you're going to leave out a whole bunch of things, because you're going to have to leave out a bunch of things, because you're not going to even know things about yourself that are true. You see yourself not the way that you really are. So all autobiographies and biographies are not accurate. So having said that, going back to the answer to the question, look for lessons of any kind that you can use in doing what? Solving problems that you have all the time. Because everybody, for the most part, says they do have some problems every now and then, if not all the time.
Okay.
So you codify these problems. Okay. Find out the lessons that will help you to solve problems.
All right. Question number 2. This comes from Mr. Black. He says, Mr. Fuller, I sincerely thank you for your service. Considering racist white supremacists are the progenitors of deception, war, terrorism, rape, incest, bestiality, necrophilia, and usury, and their actions have produced non-justice, should all non-white people use various forms of deception and violence to produce the constructive result of justice? In other words, balance between people?
No. Counter-violence means you are working against the violence that's being inflicted on you. That's not non-violence. That's counter-violence. Like someone swings a baseball bat at you, and you see the bat coming at you, fixing to strike your head, so you duck. And if you have a bat, you use the bat that you have to repel the aggression. That's counter-violence. The code book says, logically speaking, you have to use counter-violence against violence under some circumstances. And the circumstances should be well tailored. So that's not, counter-violence is not non-violence. The compensatory code says you do, in specified circumstances, where it's correct to do so, where you're justified in doing so, use counter-violence against the violence being inflicted, if you can do it successfully and under the correct circumstances. which correct circumstances mean you are definitely the person who is acting in the behalf of justice, balance between people, okay? And that the end result of you doing that will be favorable to you. Because sometimes you can be what you might call in the right, but the conditions are not favorable to you to come out successfully in using counter violence, even though you're in the right, because you don't want to lose. That's the main thing. Whatever you do, it's got to be you come out ahead of whatever you're going to do, if it's possible to do so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me do this. This is an updated information from the administrator. He said clarification. The administration said for clarification, the books will be shipped to our fulfillment center this week. Unless there is a delay along the route, they should be in stock this week. Let me read that again. The books will be shipped to our fulfillment center this week. Unless there is a delay along the route, they should be in stock. So when they get there, then they'll be there. So I imagine that a person still can place their order, and when the books get in at the fulfillment center, then the books will be shipped out. So that's the latest updated information on that, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, sir. I appreciate that.
Oh, okay.
And they can go to Produce Justice to get it. .com. ProduceJustice.com.
Yeah, ProduceJustice.com. Okay, that's the latest updated information on that one. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Question. Okay, question. Considering racist white supremacists scientifically pursue the systematic death, destruction, and subjugation of all non-white people, can they be viewed as parasitic, cancerous, satanic, anti-life beings designed by the Creator to keep human population under control?
Well, yes. If the evidence shows that, and so far, the white supremacists believe in terror, making people afraid. If you're going to make people subject to you, you have to put fear into them. So they do that. They have done that. They are terrorists. They are master terrorists, as the textbook says, in the Word Guide and throughout the textbook. So they're a terrorist organization. They're a terrorist world. So that's what they do. They terrorize their prisoners based on making them subject to the system of what they call white supremacy. And you're a person of color, you come under that system. And the system calls for terroristic behavior.
Yeah.
It's an illegitimate system, illegitimate war. They are war criminals, but they don't care. That's what they set out to be. So you get what they are. You get that result.
Okay. I'm almost embarrassed to ask this question, but since this person wrote it, I'm going to read it. Anyway, it says this question. In your opinion, Mr. Fuller, what will replace racism, white supremacy?
Justice. You have a non-just system, a just system. In order to compensate for a non-just system, what is the logical thing to have? You have a system of justice. What's the difference between justice and non-justice? Non-justice is people are being mistreated, and the people who need help the most do not get it. You deliberately are in opposition to that. Justice is that no one is mistreated, guaranteed, and that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help, guaranteed.
Okay.
And so you want to replace a system of non-justice with a system of justice. The system of non-justice that dominates the planet right now, the greatest system, is the system of racism, which is loosely called white supremacy.
White supremacy, yes, sir. Okay, let's do this. I do not have anybody new waiting, so let's go to Dante. Let me see. Dante's back for a second slice of the action. Okay, Dante, you are... you're on, Dante. Go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so, Mr. Fuller, on page 437, you mentioned that whatever put black people in the universe will keep black people in the universe. If it is the will, whatever put black people in the universe. And on page 421, you quote that non-white people are functionally inferior to those white people who practice white supremacy racism. So for me, I recognize that you had mentioned the term black in regards to people only about 6 times in your book, maybe 7 or so, and mostly in the quotes section. So I was curious, like from your perspective, are black people the most colored or non-white people on the planet, and also therefore the most functionally inferior? You know, and if so, why would other non-whites want to be grouped in and or included with us?
So the question is, why would other non-whites want to do what?
Well, are black people the most colored or non-white people in the universe, and also the most functionally inferior? That was the first part.
Or are they functionally inferior?
Yeah, and are we the most colored or most non-white people?
What's that word? The most tolerant, or the most
colored to have
the
color.
Most colored,
non-white. Yeah.
Oh, black people have more color, yes. Of all of the non-white people, black people who are called black, but then black is used very loosely because you hear the expression a lot of times. Black and brown people. Most black people are brown. If you really look at them, even in places that are called equatorial, where people are closer to the sun throughout thousands of years.
So does that
if you
make
look
us the
at
most
them very
functionally
closely,
inferior?
they are dark brown.
Yeah.
But they are functionally inferior to the power of the white supremacists. See, that's what I mean by functionally inferior, if that's what you're focusing on. Now, black people will say, well, am I genetically inferior? Now, that's controversial. See what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I have reason to believe it is not true because I've seen people who are jet black do some amazing things. I've seen that with my own eyes. I've seen them do very efficient things. And I've seen white people who are chalk white who did a lot of stupid things. So what people are you talking about? What persons are you talking about? Because that's really what it comes down to. What individual person are you talking about? And what are the circumstances that they're in?
My question. So the next part of my question was why would the other non-whites want to be grouped in or included with us?
They would. They shouldn't even want to be. Yes, nobody wants to be anybody. Why would anybody want to be around somebody who's not about nothing? To use a slang expression, people usually gravitate toward people who are accomplishing things. Even people who have contempt for people who accomplish things, they still gravitate toward them. The person who buys that pair of shoes that they want to show off with, homeboy. That's the term I usually use for the black person who is very dysfunctional. Homeboy wants to buy this new pair of shoes. Now, homeboy will have contempt for everybody who doesn't have a new pair of shoes like he's got. but he will not have contempt for the person who made the shoes. He's all grins. You know, he got a smile a mile wide when he's getting those shoes from the person who has millions of the shoes, because the person who has millions of the shoes are the person who made the shoes and provided them for him. Now, he might not want to mention the person so much as an individual, but he will mention the shoes. He'll brag about having those shoes.
Okay. Dante, don't be a stranger, and thanks for your call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I don't have a name for this person. You pressed the number one, but okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, my question for Mr. Fuller is, Mr. Fuller, what do you say to about the fact that although there are whites who are saying that COVID is a conspiracy, there are also blacks who are saying that I live in New Orleans, where it has taken a devastating toll here. I see it every day. Many of our young people are not wearing masks when they go out in the stores. And there are also some black people who are promoting the use of the hydrochloroquine drug that the president is pushing. And I guess the question is, what do you say to those black people who feel that this corona is a conspiracy, or a hoax rather, and therefore we should not take it seriously, so on and so forth?
Well, what I say about it is that the white supremacists, again, are successful in doing what? Causing confusion. Because, you know, if you cause confusion among any people, you got them. It's only the person that really knows. So we are confused people. When it comes to the virus, I'm confused. See, so they got me. They got me on that one. I don't know what to believe. Because the white supremacists themselves, to the extent that they have anything to do with it, they always put out 3 and 4 different stories, many of them contradictory, in order to do what? To confuse people that they try to dominate, or they intend to dominate, or to continue to dominate. So that would apply to black people. See, there's no way to avoid that confusion in the system of white supremacy. We are at their complete mercy. That's what I say. You ask me, what do I say about it? We're prisoners. We're prisoners of war. You spread a virus in a prison, what do the prisoners know? They just know that there's a virus. So the guards come around and say one thing one day, and then they come around and say something else the next day. And then they say something completely different from the first 2 things that they said on the third day. Now you got 3 things to choose from about what is the truth. So you are what? Confused. But prisoners of war are supposed to be confused. According to whom? The prison masters. Because that makes an excellent prisoner. Keep them confused. Keep them hoping for this and hoping for that, and hoping that they can find out what the real deal is, and nobody really knows, and let them even get out there and fight among themselves about who knows more about what's going on, which the prison masters have always enjoyed as a form of entertainment. Let those black people fight among themselves about the confusion that I cause. Let them argue. Let them go to meetings and whatnot. That way I don't have to take up a whole lot of time watching them, because they're doing my job.
Okay. All right, Darren, thank you for your call, and don't be a stranger, please, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see here. Okay, oops, got my screen on. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's make sure that I don't have anybody holding. I have a few that are listening, but okay, let's do this. This comes from Jakar. He says this, Mr. Fuller, hope you're doing well. Mr. Fuller, does the code support blacks segregating themselves in the case that integration with whites continues to fail toward the elimination of white supremacy. Whites love to have us around to kick around because it gives them fun and glory. If we all moved away from them, then they would likely all turn on each other. The same thing happened in Europe a long ago. In my opinion, that is a great way to eliminate white supremacy, by having the white supremacists eliminate themselves. It's less work for us to do. Jakari, Mr. Fuller, what do you think?
What I think is what the evidence shows. No way for the victims of white supremacy to move away from the white supremacists, when the white supremacists run not only this planet called Earth, the entire planet, every inch of it, they run it, because they run the people who are walking around on the planet, who are people of color. Wherever people of color are, the white supremacists tell them what to do, one way or another, and they better do it. They have made a prison of the entire planet. So, now, non-white people can say, okay, well, let's see now. Logically speaking, if the white supremacists are running this planet, everywhere on it, every inch of it, and run all the people of color wherever they happen to be, then if we're going to get away from it, what do we have to do? Get off the planet. Okay? Which means we go to some other planet. Now, at this particular point, it's not logical to think that way, going to another planet. Why? Because if black people decide we want to go to another planet, the white supremacists will have to take us there. We don't even think about that. In fact, on this planet, when black people are talking about we're going somewhere, to some island somewhere, going to sneak and go there, the white supremacists look at us in amazement. Oh, in other words, you're going to an island where I already am. Because I am on every island.
Yeah.
I mean, I know about. I tell you where the island is, and then you're going to sneak there and hide from me. And you didn't even know that the island exists until I told you. See, we're not logical.
Not logical.
They know that
yes,
we are
sir.
not logical people. That's
yes,
why they get behind. They must burn midnight oil while they're burning midnight oil, figuring out what they're going to do with black people next. They just fall out laughing and shake their heads.
Yeah,
That's
I can
how
see that.
shallow our minds are.
That's shallow. Let me do this here. For Daryl, got notification about a half an hour ago, maybe 45 minutes, that you can get the books. Now, the books are going to be shipped to the Fulfillment Center. So you can put your order in by going to producejustice.com. And unless there is a delay along the route, they should be in stock. It should be in stock next week. But I believe you can go ahead and put your order in. That is the latest update that we have on the books. Everybody wants that book, and that's good. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show, CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And if you would like to call in, you may do so because the phone lines are now open, and we do have Ike on hold right now. But here's the number. Call 516-453-9921. Make sure you press the number 1 button, and I am told by Brother Moon Pie and his brother that you will go to the top of the line. They protect Mr. Fuller and myself, so don't mess with us. But they told us that when you press that button, you will go to the top of the line, and you will be next in rotation, particularly if Mr. Fuller is asking or answering a question. So that's 516-453-9921. We've had a chance to read some Gmails today, which we will continue our new practice of reading Gmails the first 15 minutes of each hour. So that means at least 6 Gmails each week will be read. Of course, we have read more than that, but we're going to try to deplete that list so that we can have respect toward all you who Gmail. Again, 561-453-9921 is the number to call. And let me get to, it's either Ike or Ikey. I have a friend named Ikey who spells his name the same way that you do. But anyway, you're on live with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Right, good morning. Good to talk to you guys. I listened to a show a while back, and Mr. Fuller had talked about it was, how do I say it here? The purpose for black people is being, he said the purpose is for us to fight against white supremacy, or in some, form or fashion. He mentioned that was, what he thought was the purpose for, us being here on Earth. And I just wanted to kind of get him to talk a little bit more about that. And I may not be saying that right, but I know he mentioned, the work of our ancestors who have fought against, white supremacy throughout history, and the success that they had. But I just wanted to, see if you could talk a little bit more about, the purpose.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, do you remember that, saying something close to that, or that?
I say that all the time. That's why I'm on the air right now. That's my purpose.
Yeah.
I'm talking about racism. Yeah. It's the biggest problem that people are confronting on the planet, including finding a cure for the virus. I mean, everybody, white people and non-white people, we are acting a little bit, just a little bit, not much, just a little bit sane on account of this virus, which is, just getting a little bit sample, just a small sample of how the world should be. And what is that? Problem solving. But on account of this invention that some white people presumably came up with, they're the usual suspects when it comes to this thing called racism, it gets in the way of doing all the other things, the problems that need to be solved. There's all kinds of problems that need to be solved. The theory is, and it could be incorrect, but it's the theory that I have based on logic and based on evidence. We are put here for the purpose of being problem solvers, not problem makers, like black people have a huge reputation for being. Nobody wants to be around black people, including other black people. Why? Because we have a reputation for being problem makers, not problem solvers. So, we should have a code that's designed to help us to always get in the mood and always have us waking up in the morning and going to bed at night thinking about what problem can I solve. So the biggest problem on the planet now, even with all the coronavirus going around, that's a big problem. But the bigger problem that gets in the way of even solving that problem is racism. It gets in the way of solving all the other problems that people could be working on. The entire environment needs to be looked into and reshaped. to the best of people's ability so that we have the best possible environment here on this wonderful planet called Earth that's been given to all of us. But the evidence, some person might ask, and I ask myself, what are we here for? When I say we, I mean all the people, white people, non-white people, male, female. What are we here for? What are we? Why did the Creator create people and put them on a place called the planet Earth? In order to do what? That's the basic question. But when you move from that basic question and ask the other questions, okay, we're here. What are we supposed to be doing? So I came to the conclusion, and I think it's correct, based on logic, always follow the logic, we're here to solve problems. Now, how did Neely Fuller come to that conclusion? That people are made to solve problems because we got problems. Whatever put us here could have put us in an environment where there were no problems at all. But we were put in a world full of problems. The people who own this planet right now, you wake up in the morning, you got problems looking you right in the face. And these are the problems you're supposed to be working on. Because people have asked me, well, Fuller, if we're put here to solve problems, what problems are we supposed to be solving? Well, logic says if we are put here to solve problems, the problems that you're looking at, just slapping you in the face right now, because everybody complains about the problems that they have. So those are the problems that are assigned to you. You're not supposed to try to run away from them, because I've tried that. Problems have a way of being like your shadow in the desert at high noon. You can run and run and run until you're completely exhausted and dehydrated. But you look down, if you're in the desert at high noon, and you still see your shadow. In other words, the problems go where you go. They follow you. So you're supposed to be solving that problem. That's why the problem keeps catching up with you and right along with you all the time you're trying to run from them. That's how you know that that's the problem that you are assigned to solve. And every black person on the planet has been assigned to solve a problem called the race problem. Why? Because that's the problem you can't get away from, no matter where you go. So that's the logic of it.
Okay. Ike or Ike, don't be a stranger, and thanks for calling.
All right.
All righty. Let's see here. I believe we're going to go to Marion. Marion, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
I guess I wasn't really waiting to ask a question, but I'll ask one since you unmuted me. But as far as begging, I know that you speak about us being beggars in the system, and I was wondering, every time we're asking for a job, we're begging, and so are there any restrictions as to what type of job we should be begging for? For example, if there are jobs that do more harm in the system, and then maybe we shouldn't beg for those jobs, and we should try to find jobs that are least harmful. What do you think about that?
Well, if I understand the question, if you're looking for a job in the system of white supremacy and you are a person of color, you look for the most constructive job that you can find. It's just that simple. You're a prisoner of war. You're looking for a job in a prison.
Exactly.
So, if it's a machine shop and you're interested in machines, as long as you can learn something that may be of constructive value, even if you are not a prisoner, then, and you can get revenue from it, in other words, you're able to pay your bills, which you're required to do, then that's the job that you get. Try to take interest in doing something that will be constructive under any circumstance, even when you're not a prisoner of war. But it will still be something constructive. Knowing how to build a house, or knowing how to operate a computer, or doing anything that may have a constructive use, not non-constructive. Not be a drug dealer. I mean, of a type of drugs like cocaine or whatnot, and used in the manner that it's usually used. You don't want a job doing that. Why? Because that's non-constructive.
Yes, sir.
So just anything that is of constructive value. And if you don't know what that is, if that's a question mark, yes, just go and find out all of the possible jobs on the entire planet that a person can have. Find out the titles of them, and then find out what these jobs are designed to do. And anything that you can...
Just to follow up real quick, one
Hello?
question. Because just to follow up on that really quick. I don't want to take time, but
yes, go right ahead.
You were in the Marines or the Army. Are joining the forces or the police force, the Army, other type of forces like that? Is that a constructive thing?
Yes, if you know how to do it in a way that will produce a constructive result. Try to pick out something that's available, because you can only do what's available to you, and pick out something that you think you can do and do successfully and produce a constructive result. You do it. Now, a lot of people have asked me, well, anything you do under the system of white supremacy is supporting the system of white supremacy. That's true. There's no way to be in a prison and not support the prison system. Okay?
Correct.
But while you're in that system, try to learn something that you can use if that system did not exist at all. And try to learn it to the best of your ability and use it to the best of your ability inside the prison to do the most constructive things that you possibly can do.
Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Mary, don't be a stranger, honey. Thank you so much for your call. Thank you. Mr. Fuller, got a question here. Let's see, from Barbara. She says this, greetings, Mr. Fuller. I'm sitting down listening to last Tuesday's CRCS program when this man called your concept absurd. Too many people don't know what racism is. Can you please, Mr. Fuller, cover this topic and find out why black people cannot and are not capable of racism? Thank you for all you do to produce justice.
Well, in answer to the question, you can't be the inmate of a prison, born in a prison, and be the prison master at the same time. That's it. Think of the world as a prison, and you are a person of color. You're born in prison. And your prison uniform is the color of your skin. And prisoners have a prison master. That master, when it comes to the system of white supremacy, is a person who is white, not all white people, but a person who is white that dominates and mistreat you because of your color. That's a white supremacist. But in order to be a white supremacist, you have to first be white, classified as white at least. Then you can go about mistreating people of color. You have a license to do that. In fact, you have a duty, if you're a white supremacist, to do just that, dominate and mistreat people who have color in their skin. So, if you are subject to the system of white supremacy, you are subject to the system of white supremacy. And I think that's the answer to the question.
All righty.
That's what you are.
As we go to break here, a special shout-out to the to the Gatewood brothers, and also to Glenda. She's listening and thanking you for all the different things you do. But it is at this time, Mr. Fuller, 45 minutes after the hour, 15 minutes before the end of this program, actually 14, that we need to speak about your book, and there's been a lot of inquiry about your books, the 1984 book, the 2016 edition. Can you speak a little bit about your book and whatever information that you have?
Go to producejustice.com. That's the way that I've been told to always say it when people ask me about what I have written. Go to producejustice.com, and everything is right there about what the book is about, including in the 1984 edition. It'll hit you right in the face, because right there in large print, unlike in the 2016 edition of the revised edition and the 2010 edition of the Word Guide, all of which is basically the same book, even though it's in 2 volumes. But in the 1984 edition, you have it right there under the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. It says a textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. And then in parentheses, it has the term that's the same for racism, white supremacy. You can get it by going to producejustice.com. All 3 volumes, or I recommend basically the revised expanded edition that will be there in a few days. 2016, it'll say that right on the cover, revised, expanded, and the Word Guide, all of which are basically the same book, even though they're in 2 volumes. And what are these books for? They are for victims of white supremacy. If you don't perceive yourself to be a victim of racism, if racism doesn't exist for you, that as far as you're concerned, you don't have to be concerned about it, because it's not concerned about you, and you don't have a race problem. Nobody ever mistreats you or denies you anything on the basis of color, then the book is not for you. I make that very clear. Some people say that this thing that Neely Fuller calls white supremacy does not really exist. Then what Neely Fuller has written is not for you, because I have concluded that it not only exists, but if you are a person of color, if you have color in your skin and you are classified as black and or non-white, that's brown, beige, red, so-called red man, they say. The white supremacists classify people. If you are in any of those classifications, the theory is that you are a victim of a system of government, an illegitimate system of government called the system of white supremacy, and that system is designed to dominate and mistreat you in all 9 areas of activity 24/7: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And the book that I have written is intended to help you to come up with speech and action after you think about it, what's in the book, speech and action that will help you solve your own individual problem in dealing with this system of racism. Go to producejustice.com. The book is directed toward the individual person.
Yes. I just got a word from Glenda, and she says that, and I'm happy, she says that she has purchased both the Word Guide and the book, and That's outstanding. Let's go to the Caribbean here, and this is just a message. This comes from Brian B1322. I guess you could call it VGQ. He says, good day, Mr. Fuller. What is the meaning of black? Because I understood black people are not black and white people are not white. P.S. I'm in the Caribbean listening, and every time I write a comment, I mention you, Mr. Fuller, and the radio station and your name. I use what I've learned in everyday life. Thank you for your number. Thank you for the subject, and I am still learning.
Well, if I understand the question, what is black and what is white is determined by the prison masters who run the prison called the system of white supremacy. They decide, but according to what I've written, there are three basic categories when you start talking about race. Now, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, they have a whole bunch of categories, so I understand. The one that I looked at prior to this last census had 21 categories. I only have 3 in the textbook. So somebody is not telling the truth. Either I'm not telling the truth or they are, but I'm seeing it the way that I see what the truth is. It's white, non-white, and white supremacists. But you have to be a person classified as white in order to be a white supremacist. But it's just 3 categories. All of the what you call brown people, red people, yellow people, they are shades of black. Because black is basic. Most of the universe is black. Most of the universe is black, including blacker than black, whatever that means, because I understand that there is such a thing in the universe that is full of blackness, but in that blackness, there's something blacker than blackness, which I can't even fathom what that would be like, but they call it black holes. You got black holes in a universe that's black, but in that black universe, you have something called black holes that absorbs everything, including other forms of blackness, into the blackest of the blackest. So I don't know what that means. All right? And I can't wrap my mind around it because my mind is too feeble for that.
Blacker than black.
But I guess if somebody could sit down and go over it with me, I might be able to comprehend it. But I think it would take some work on my part.
Okay. Blacker than black. Wow.
Yeah. See, so it just depends on. But in the system of white supremacy, who's white and who's non-white is determined by the white supremacists.
Okay.
So if you run a system, you can do anything you want to. You can call anything you can call day night if you want to, and people will say, well, day is not night. It's different. But if I am your master and I'm holding the whip, and I say that every time you say that, I'm going to whip you, you'll finally see it my way.
You finally will, yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. Let's do this one here. Let's see here. This comes from COA. Says, Mr. Bobby, could you ask Mr. Fuller to explain where did the belief come from or came from? I'm just reading what he said. Came from in the paragraph number 3 on page 109 in the Revised Expanded Edition under Education. The one about needing non-whites to reproduce with them. Okay, 109. Okay.
109.
That's what COA says here. Okay, if you get there first, go ahead. I'm just now. Okay, 109.
And she says what now?
It says, could you ask Mr. Fuller to explain where did the belief came from in paragraph number 3? Okay, 1, 2, 3. on page 109 in the Revised Expanded Edition
What's the
under
first word?
education. The one about needing non-whites to reproduce with them. Let's see.
She said paragraph 3, right?
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't
see anything
that.
like that.
I know you have numbers 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if that's paragraph 3, where it says it is possible that another reason why some white people do not desire to kill all of the non-white people is because of their belief that if white people try to reproduce themselves through sexual activity with white people only, such activity may result in a form of white incest that may eventually lead to the disappearance of white people through a weakening and withering away process. Yeah, maybe that's what he's talking about.
Yes. I think that's what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because if white people keep mating with nothing but white people, it could be that, how white can you get? Just like how black can you get? Can you keep getting blacker if black people keep mixing with black people? Do they keep getting blacker and blacker and blacker? Well, what is shown up is that, they get black to the extent that they are pretty black. I mean, whatever you mean by black. But then every now and then they come up with somebody who is brown. And every now and then some of the darkest of people come up with somebody who is not only brown, but light brown, what you might call tan.
Yes.
But white people have a tendency white people don't produce any people of color.
Yes.
All the evidence shows that.
Yeah.
So
Dr. Welsing.
That's why I say it becomes something like
right.
It looks like incest, and you might have what you call, I don't know, two white people keep blending with each other, whether or not at some point they come up with an albino, because albinos have to be produced by people of color.
Dr. Welsing mentioned on my last week's program on another show that she said that white people, when they mix with black people, don't want to do that because of something about genetic annihilation. They wouldn't exist. Yes.
So it makes sense. And so a question might be raised, should white people exist? Now, people have asked me that question. And I say, well, they do exist, and they have shown capabilities of doing things. So I'm saying be very careful about trying to put something out of existence that does exist. And I've given roaches as an example, not comparing roaches with people, white people or non-white people. That's not what I'm doing. But just about everybody despises roaches.
Yes.
Everybody say a roach is not good for nothing.
Got 1 minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, and right, and hey, everybody just about all over the world. You see a roach, you kill it.
Yes, yeah.
You just don't tolerate a roach at all. I mean, roaches, oh my goodness. I mean, who likes a roach? Okay, but I've been saying for years, be a little cautious about killing that last roach, because we just might find sometimes in the future that you can stick a needle in a roach. I've given this hypothetical illustration.
We got 30 seconds.
And draw something out of that filthy roach and mix it with something else, maybe alcohol or whatever, and come up with a serum that will kill 47 different types of diseases.
Wow. Gotta leave
and everybody will be running around trying to find one old wobbly roach.
Okay.
They thought they killed them all.
But got to leave it there, out of show, but and out of time. All right, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. This has been the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and co-host Mr. Bobby. Hopefully we will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.